Welcome to the AdvisorPro Podcast. Today, I'm joined by Will Polston. So Will is a best-selling author, award-winning performance coach, and entrepreneur. Will's transformed the lives of thousands of ambitious individuals by helping them unlock their potential, performance, and purpose. And Will, he's written a book, The North Star Thinking, Master Your Mindset, and Live a Life You Love. It's a #1 bestseller, Will. What the hell? It's amazing.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to our conversation and talking all things North Star thinking.
Well, let's hope so. I don't know those other guys, the South Star guys, Will, hey, look, you've gone from working as in finance, right? And so now you're a coach, you're an author. What happened? Did you wake up one morning and say, you know what? I've had enough.
It wasn't far off that. I mean, it was what I call a lightning moment. So it was literally 1 second I have a particular belief of how things were, and then it was like being struck by lightning and everything changed. But what happened, sort of the short version of the story, is I grew up with a belief that money equaled happiness. I went on a tangent to make as much money as I could as early as I could, did okay at that. And during that process of wanting to make money, I stumbled across personal development. The more personal development I did, the more money I made. And that sort of sent me off on a trajectory until I went to an event, a big personal development event with a very well-known personal development figure, a guy called Tony Robbins. And I was at his UPW event, Unleash the Power Within. And it was in one of his interventions in a story that he was telling that the penny dropped for me. The lightning moment happened where I realized that my belief that money equaled happiness wasn't true. It was never really about money. It was something much, much deeper than that, which was to do with my dad and my family and a whole host of other things. And I just vowed in that moment, I don't want anyone else to go through the suffering that I'd perceived my dad go through and other people go through by them not achieving their full potential. So from that moment on, Colin, I've just been obsessed with anything to do with human awareness, human potential, human behavior to enable people to essentially live a life that they love. And that's what we've been doing since.
I love that. I love that, Will. It's funny. I was brought up with a healthy disregard for money. And maybe that comes from we were okay. It's not like we were wealthy or anything like that. But I was brought up that, that money is secondary. You've got to pursue your dreams. You've got to be passionate about your subject. You've got to really, really drive. Hey, I haven't been to a Tony Robbins seminar, but, it sounds like that was transformative for you. That's super, super cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Are there many other people? Of course there are. He's super successful. But did you have a shared journey with other people? Do you keep in contact with other people in that kind of seminar? I mean, how does that work?
So it was actually a guy that I read a book of, I'm going to say 12 years ago. And in the book, he spoke about keeping a list of people that influence you admire and trust.
Mm.
And one of the things that I suppose I'm quite good at is if someone tells me to do something that I think is a good idea, I do it. So for years, I would write out this list every quarter. I would add people to it, remove people from it, of people that influence me, I admire and trusted. And that was a combination of people. It was some people that were what I call indirect mentors. So they're people I watched the YouTube videos of. In today's day and age, we listen to the podcasts of. Back then, I suppose there was podcasts, but I wasn't listening to them. It was the people that I was reading the books of, the people that were that felt like they're a million miles away. People that are dead, that I'm never going to meet, but their books exist so I can learn their wisdom in that respect. Then there was the people that I regarded as kind of peers, people that I kind of looked up to, but they were within reaching distance. I could drop them a message on WhatsApp and say, hey, do you want to meet for a coffee? And yeah, I just made a point of every quarter I would be in contact with any of those. So that I'd read a book, I would meet them for a coffee, I would go out for lunch with them, I would listen or watch a video of theirs. So yeah, I've sort of worked hard at trying to create that sphere of influence around me for many years now.
That's really interesting. And, I guess, I've worked on a similar thing. And it's funny though that the many of the stories that resonate the most are with the people who are humble enough to be able to say, hey, that didn't quite work out, or I screwed up there. And this is what happened. Because I think, very often on LinkedIn, on, I don't know, Facebook, insert social media of choice, all we hear about, it's almost like the heavyweight boxing champs. You don't hear about the people being punched in the face on a daily basis, in terms of their journey. And sometimes those those more human experiences, yeah, personally, I enjoy those most, you know? So yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I often think of social media is most people's front of stage. And what we tend to do is we compare our behind the scenes to
Mhm.
someone else's front of stage. So there's this massive sort of gap and we can create a disconnect so that when you do have people and they do it, and certainly I've attempted over the years to do it, is they share the vulnerable side, you know, the thing when things haven't worked out, they haven't gone well, which not a lot of people do because it's scary as hell to do that, you know, to talk about all of your shortcomings and where you've screwed up and where you've messed up. It can be really scary to do that, which is why I guess a lot of people don't do it. It's much easier to talk about all the wins and the highlight reels of what's going on. But yeah, I'm the same with you. Is that you're more likely to connect with the people when you can be when you can be vulnerable because they're probably more likely to empathize with where you're at.
I think that I love that. It's one of the drivers, I think, why I still work with founders. I work with advisors and investors, and these kind of like this triad, unfortunate expression, but this triad of groups. Yeah, really, it's all about communication between the three. You know, the founder's trying to communicate with the investor. The investor doesn't understand what the hell's going on, so they try like rely on an advisor to try and provide some kind of conduit. But realistically, when we're in that kind of mode, I'm just trying to break down those kind of barriers. As an ex-founder in my first role, I'm screwed up everywhere. Oh my gosh, we had no idea what we were doing. You know, I had a pet snake. I accidentally stepped prior to the office. You know, all kinds of different kind of crazy things. You know, too many to list. But it's the reason why I still work with founders. 28 years on. Oh my God, I'm so old. But 28 years old. I wish, and I say this in my coaching a lot, I wish I could go back in time and say, Colin, don't do that. That's crazy. This is a sales funnel. This is a marketing. Lose the snake, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't know many people that put their success down to the snake they had as a pet, but yeah, it's interesting, and you're right. I think that the cliche is that you learn from your mistakes, and people talk about, well, invest in mentoring and whatnot. Yes, the best way to learn is from mistakes, but they don't have to be your mistakes. If you can learn from someone else's mistakes, someone else that has made that journey and said, no, you don't want to go left there, you want to go right because this is what happens if you go left, then you can stay a few steps ahead of the curve. And having great advisors, because a lot of people have advisors, but they're not necessarily great advisors. But having great advisors, having great coaches, having great mentors is something that has the ability to hopefully steer you down less of the wrong turns.
Absolutely. And I guess that experience also shapes the way that you guide your clients.
Yeah.
Very cool. When you started, something that comes up in my sessions quite a bit. I mean, as you know, I'm doing a lot of coaching with very, very, very experienced people who've been in some cases, huge corporates or leaders of these corporates, and they're trying to be relevant to small business or startups, or entrepreneurs. And so there's this thing that comes up, the I word. It's the imposter syndrome word. It's like, well, you know, I might know it, all there is to know about, you know, GlaxoSmithKline, you know, but how the hell am I actually relevant to this founder and their journey? How did you get through that when you first started? Because look, as experienced and as professional and as polished and as successful as you are now, you started at a certain point. What was that like?
So I have a belief on this that is probably not what the majority of people would say. And I think a lot of people, in my opinion, will go tactical at this point and they'll say, well, you can think like this and you can do this and you can acknowledge all of your things. But the core focus, a fundamental piece that I think most people get wrong is the reason why they're doing it. You know, the whole my definition of a North Star is a mission in life that's the equivalent of trying to empty the sea with a spoon. What's the thing that you're willing to do for the rest of your life that you'll accept you'll never actually do? You'll never complete it. Now, there's lots of things that we can come up with, but the one that is really meaningful, the one that actually moves the needle, the one that really inspires you is going to come from a number of, there's a number of different ways of creating it and uncovering essentially what that is. But if you tap into that, nothing else matters. You don't worry about what people think of you when you're operating from that place. You don't worry about whether it's going to work or whether it's not when you're doing this next thing that's directly in front of you, because you're just on the mission. And that for me is the bit that so many people get wrong. They don't tap into that in the beginning, and then they wonder why all of the other things don't work out. Well, if you just started with that, everything else is downstream from that. I work with so many people that the moment they tap into that one thing, everything else kind of becomes irrelevant. You know, it lights up the rest of the way and you can do those things. So for me, a lot of people, I get it. I was that guy many years ago going, right, well, I want to leave the city and I want to go and do something. And I did attempt different things. I did leave the city. I set up a renewable energy business. We had 85 staff, growing, growing, growing. Government changed legislation, killed that business overnight. And then I was questioning myself again, like, why am I still just chasing the money? Actually, if I did the very thing that I really wanted to do and focused on the people that I actually really care about wanting to help, everything else becomes irrelevant, and you find the ways and you don't become so obsessed with self. In 20, must have been 27, 8 years ago now, I did a TEDx talk called It's Not About You. And if people live with that philosophy, if they live with that belief and they focus on the person they're serving, they soon get out their own way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I guess the takeaway there is, focus on the passion, focus on, like you said, the North Star, focus on, what the main mission is. Everything else will fall into place. I guess sometimes it doesn't, right? But as long as you've got that directive, as long as you've got that in mind, then, at least you'll know the size of the mountain ahead and you can get up and equip accordingly. So you wrote the book. How do you start that? How do you start writing a book? I wanted to write a book for ages.
The 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 honest answer to this is that I cheated. And I cheated because so my what was my signature event for many years was an event called Unlock Your Potential. It started off as a one-day event that I ran that was probably 4, maybe 5 hours in total. There were 7 steps to it. Over the course of nearly a decade, that ended up becoming a 2-day, 20 hours across 2 days, 11 or 12 different modules that we covered throughout it. And I had a 300-page workbook that I developed for that event that people got, massive, big, ring-bound thing.
Okay.
And that was what then become the basis of the book. So for me, it wasn't, I didn't sit down one day with a blank sheet of paper and go, right, let's get these ideas out of my head and get them down. I already had a 300-page head start. I say it was a head start. I actually think it would have probably been easier to start without a blank page, because what I attempted to do with the view of trying to be efficient was take lots of other content of mine, podcasts I'd done, videos I'd recorded, get them transcribed and but the written word's very different to the spoken word, and that in itself created a bunch of delays. Something that's written as a workbook is not written like a book that you read from cover to cover. So there was lots of stuff that made it a little bit more complicated than probably it needed to be. So for me, that was the basis of what I did there. And it's probably not something I would suggest for someone to do it that way. But yeah, it comes down to knowing what I know now, and there's a bunch of other books that I'm about to write, is I think of a book like a business. I think of a podcast like a business. Who's it for? Like, who's the ideal client? So like, what's the market? What's the message? Obviously the medium is going to be the book in how it's delivered. How do I want them to think? How do I want them to feel as a result of doing it? What action do I want them to take thereafter? And then it's just a case of breaking it down. What are the key components that need to be added? What are the subcomponents? And more often than not, once people have got that skeleton in place, then actually the writing part is pretty easy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing the journey of the book. I've always found it fascinating. I might have to dip it. I'm just so busy, Will. Oh my gosh, I'm so busy. So I might need some AI to help me write the AI book. I don't know. I don't know. Um, in terms of what's coming down the line, then, so we talk about the North Star. What is coming down the line? Are you able to share?
So, in terms of from the business perspective, yeah. So, we are in the process of repositioning my services that sit currently under my personal brand. So all of my programs revolve around Evolve. So like the Evolve Academy, the Evolve Inner Circle, the Evolve Mastermind, the Evolve Legacy. We're in the process of kind of reversing them out of my personal brand and into what will be Evolution Institute that we're developing to become a hub for entrepreneurs in the UK that really want to focus on personal development. So any area of personal development, to be able to have the support, the resources, the connections, the peers, to be able to have that as a resource. So that's something that we're doing at the moment, which is quite exciting. And everything else is just amplification. So even having great conversations like this, Colin, where I get to share the ethos of North Star thinking, because I am biased, but I do believe that once you've got clear on that, so much everything else is kind of downhill from how you structure your time, how you think, how you can overcome challenges more efficiently, more effectively, how you can create habits more effectively, what businesses you decide to get involved or not get involved with. You mentioned earlier that there'd been sort of roles that you found yourself getting involved with full time. I imagine there's some sort of consulting role where people are parachuted you in to come and do something for a stint of time. If you're clear on your North Star, then you don't make those decisions. You don't find yourself in as many. You still have situations where you go, oh, actually, this doesn't feel congruent, but you make less of those poor decisions because you've been able to give you can give the foresight thinking to it ahead of time.
Absolutely. Absolutely agree. And it's a tough one. So for these new advisors, and certainly with startups, and you work with startups as well, founders, entrepreneurs, everyone's got their drama, right? And it's very often founders, especially. So you get all of a sudden as an advisor dragged into their drama. The thing that I say all the time is, look, the startups are everywhere. The founders are everywhere. This is an abundant market. So as an advisor, you really do have to be very, very particular in terms of who you're able to help, who you want to help. You want to help everyone. I want to help everyone. And part of the reason we're doing this is to amplify message and try to, as you just said, try to get access to more people, to help more people. You can't help everyone. So ultimately, then picking and choosing and being very particular, I don't call it a North Star. It's a qualification process for me. It's does it make me happy? Yeah, great. That's awesome. Most startups are going to make me happy. Does it give me long term value? Maybe, maybe not. The chance of success for that startup could be pretty low, depending on the market. And also, does it give me some revenue as well? Because as much as I would love to be, I'm not a charity. I can't be a charity. There's got to be things that I do for free for the community. Yeah, but when it comes down to it, we've all got bills to pay. We've all got stuff that we need to do. All got a business that we need to run. And I think that's a message really that has to resonate with some of these advisors, with some of these new pros doing what they do. They just get pulled into all kinds of situations. Sometimes it's quite funny, but it's not.
Yeah, I think that again, it comes down to thinking ahead of time. Who are the people that you are best positioned to serve? And you said there, there's elements that come into it. I think of experts in kind of reverse order. I think of the fourth most important thing is their qualifications. What trumps their qualifications is their experience. What trumps the experience is what results they've got for themselves. And what trumps the results they've got for themselves is the results they've got for others. Now, once you've started getting results for others, then you can start going, right, well, who is it that I enjoyed working with most? Was it this person or that person? And then you can start uncovering why. Pareto's principle, 80-20, typically speaking, 20% of the results, 80% of the results come from 20% of the efforts. And more often than not, if you've worked with people, if you work with people for any length period of time, you'll be able to do that exercise and identify what the 20% are and look to do and work with more of those. There will be the exceptions, the people that you really want to work with, but they can't afford it. But then that can then be a choice at that point. If you're remunerated well enough in other ways, then that can become your pro bono work if you really want to do it. But
Yeah.
you're then doing it from a place of wanting to do it rather than resenting doing it because you know that it's been covered from
Yeah.
other things.
Which then comes back around to well, if I'm going to be part of a community, then there's bits of the community that can't really afford my services, but maybe one day they will do. And ultimately, if I can help someone when they need help at the very, very most, I'll try. I'll give it a go. But yeah, hey, you also talk about the ripple effect. Now, of course, that might mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. What's your definition?
I believe when you achieve your full potential, not only does it benefit you, but it benefits your family, your friends, your community, society, humanity, the universe. That's what the ripple effect's all about. It ties in, and I touched on it, the sort of the TEDx talk of people will do more for others than they do for themselves, almost always. So when you focus your attention on the impact that you can have for other people, particularly if it's linked with some form of value. So a value is a priority. All values are born from a perceived void. So typically the things that people value most are from something in their past or someone in the past that they've got some sort of void around. You mentioned earlier the word passion. The root origin of the word passion means to suffer. So people that are extremely passionate about something have experienced some form of suffering at some point, which is what's led them to be so passionate about that particular area. And when people tap into that, it's the difference between needing inspiration or motivation. Inspiration comes from within. I think of inspiration, in spirit. What's another word for spirit? It's energy. You're in energy. It's like a torus field of energy. The more you do it, the more you get energized, the more it fills you up. When you are not doing things that really fire you up, and you're just doing them because you kind of someone said you should, or they think that's what you should be doing, then you constantly need that external motivation. And a lot of people think they burn out. You're going to have a lot of people that are listening to this. They've worked in the big corporate roles. They've experienced the burnout from doing 12, 14-hour days regularly. But people don't burn out because they're working too hard. They don't. People burn out because they're not spending enough time doing the stuff that they love doing. And if
Yeah.
you do the stuff that you love doing, you don't burn out. The key is most people don't stop and reflect enough to see what it is and where they need to maybe realign to do more of what it is that they love. So yeah, in answer to your question, the ripple effect is how you can have the greatest possible impact by focusing on what you can do to raise your game, and then that has the impact throughout.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Yeah, I mean, look, clearly you're busy. I'm super busy too. What do you do to be able to relax? What do you do to chill out?
What do I do to chill out? So for me, it's a combination of things, practices, I suppose you could call them, that I look to do to keep myself kind of what I would call always ready, rather than swinging the pendulum from one side to another. So practical things on a daily basis, or things like meditate daily, have thinking time, to journal, to write stuff down, practice gratitude. So that's a component. Exercise. I do exercise. I actually have a resource called a self-love list. So I track on a weekly basis what are the things that I love doing by myself and what are the things that I love doing with others. So things I love doing by myself might be spending time near water, whether that's a river or the sea, walking by it, running by it, listening to different types of music. I'm big into soul music. I love like Motown type music. So listening to that type of music, or classical music, or even I'm of a certain age where like dance type music as well. So there's different things that I will do. For me, other things that I like doing, but that help me prioritize me, will be making sure that I'm setting a priority list each day. Those are the sort of things. So I'm knowing what I'm doing is moving the needle. And then I'll have things that I like doing with others that I'll aim to do on a weekly basis. Going out for dinner, spending quality time with my fiance. And I will make a point of ensuring that I don't do everything on that list every week, but I'm aiming to get quite a number of those things done, because I know that then I've been prioritizing the things that fire me up and fill me with enthusiasm, that aren't the things that I do for work.
Yeah, hey, Will, there's so much in there. There's so much that resonates with me personally. You know, I'm working harder than I've ever worked. I'm 52 this year. I'm like, oh, I should be shattered, but I love it. I absolutely love it. Yeah, and not only that, the things that I do. I'm working out loads. I'm rowing. I'm cycling. I'm fitter than I've ever been. And part of it is because I'm driven and happy in the career. Is it a career? It's a lifestyle, work, making it work kind of, I don't know, blend of what, I don't know what it is, but I think it's nourishing me as opposed to working for someone else. And, just thinking, oh, here we go again. Commuting to London. Oh, really? Commuting into Sydney. Oh, commuting. Oh, it's all the same, right? Wherever you are in the world. Hey, in terms of all the other things that you do, something that I love about what I do, and other advisors listening to this will soon have this opportunity. All of a sudden, someone will tap you on the shoulder and say, you know what? I've got this I've got this idea called 21 mushrooms. Yeah, maybe if you joined it, we could make it 22. You know, that kind of thing. How do you juggle being effectively what is then an entrepreneur with your own business? You're trying to build your own business. You've got this joint venture. You've got you've got coaching. How do you juggle that and how do you focus?
Great question. So I suppose for the context for the person that's listening to this, so I have a mushroom supplement company called 22, and yeah, there you go. So my clients are in numerous different programs. I also do a fair bit of one-on-one, and any new business that I start that I've got, I treat like it's another client. So what that practically looks like is creating the strategy, making sure that the same way that if I was hiring a head of operations, I'm going to make sure they've got clear scorecards, clear expectations, outcomes that they need to own, et cetera, et cetera. And I essentially run my other businesses just like they're a client. So we put the same systems and processes in place. We do these things, and I am very clear from the outset that I am going to have no operational involvement. So there's not an expectation of me on a daily or weekly basis to do. If that was the case, then I just say, no, I'm not going to be involved. Now, with some of the startups that I've had and there's numerous, the reason I've got involved in the first place is because I know that I can give it a bit of life, and give it a bit of life sometimes is directing clients of mine. So it's very easy for me to go, right, I'm going to spend 2 hours, I'm going to make a bunch of introductions, and then that's it. I've done my piece of work because it's now on you to do everything else. So there's an AI agency that I've just gained a minority shareholdership in, and that's because I've been able to make introductions. So there's no work that I'm having to do for the day to day, and I treat it like that. So that way, I'm not having to do anything. I'm essentially redundant, if you want, from the time that I start it.
It still takes up a lot of brain power, right? Not doing doing the strategy.
I'm not sure I'd agree. I think once the process is in place and we've got clarity on where we're going and what we're doing, then yes, having a fortnightly meeting to understand what's going on and how things are processing, having clear scoreboards, knowing what levers need to be changed and moved, that those things certainly make things a lot easier. And once you've got the key metrics in place, again, scorecards, people knowing what outcomes they've got the scoreboards, then you can kind of see and act accordingly.
We're loving dashboards at the moment in our business. It's like what's working, what's not working, chop out quickly what's not working, and the processization, the systemization of almost everything. Yeah, I mean, look, like I said, I'm working really hard, but
Yeah, and if that's what you want to be doing, then that's all good. I think the issue is when people are working really hard and they don't want to be, that's a problem. But equally, at the other end of the spectrum, I work with a lot of people that they've had their big exit. They've made more money than most people could ever dream of, and they're sat at home twiddling their thumbs, wondering what to do, and they're not happy either, right? So it's finding what works for you. What I would say, just on the thing of scoreboards, and I suppose it's relevant in relation to how I think of them, that might be helpful for some people listening to this. One of the best things that I think people can ever do is switch from a monthly scoreboard or dashboard to a weekly one. Because if you do it monthly, you've got 12 times to optimize a year. If you go to weekly, you've got at least 48 times to optimize a year, and tiny tweaks lead to quantum leaps. So Albert Einstein famously said, that compound into the eighth wonder of the world. And if you can make tiny little improvements 48 times a year from having the data reported weekly, the difference that you can make is monumental compared to doing it monthly. And I see a lot of people that use scoreboards and dashboards and they only report on them monthly, but reporting on them weekly, you can make huge, huge, huge growth. But yeah, might be helpful for people.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. I mean, I guess the my thing there about being super busy is because of the process and systems, and because of the advent of AI and the ability to execute really, really fast on multiple different fronts. Just means I can go off and dream up new concepts, which I love, absolutely love. And because we got the growth systems in place to then be able to push those things out, we can build a brand really, really quickly and push it out there. And unlike anything I've experienced before. I love it. Bit of a segue there, Will, into I guess the rise of platforms. This thing called AI. I don't know if you've heard of it. Where you live. Personalized coaching, is there any room for us in the future, or are we gonna be talking to a therapy bot?
It's a really interesting question. I think my opinion is that AI is only going to be beneficial for us as a species, I suppose you could say, in terms of what we can do. And is it going to create disruption? Sure, it's going to create disruption, but I don't see it in the same way that technology today, you and I are speaking. I don't know exactly whereabouts it is in the UK you are right now, but both of us are sat in our respective places having a conversation over the internet. I've got lights shining down on me. I've got um, a bunch of stuff around me that 150 years ago just didn't even exist,
Mm,
just didn't even exist. All,
yeah,
all of this stuff, if you go right back to electricity. So it's only gonna be beneficial. I think that a lot of people, maybe not the entrepreneurs of this world that are kind of big on personal development right now, but I think the majority of the population actually have no idea quite how disruptive it's going to be, to the point where I had the pleasure of being in a conference last year with one of the founders of OpenAI, and he was talking about the three phases of AI and what's going to be happening between 2027 and 2035. And it's going to get really interesting. The whole AI agent side of things. Most people have heard of Siri or Alexa, and understanding that, like, we are about 3 years away, if that, from probably more like 2 years away, um, from any of us even using websites. Like, we just won't use websites. I would speak to my AI agent, like my Siri or my Alexa, and I'd say, "I wanna book a flight to go to, I don't know, LA," and it will know my preferences. It will know what type of seat I want to sit in. It will know all of the things that I want to know, and it will speak directly with British Airways agent or whatever it is, and it will just be done. We won't even think about it. So it's that type of stuff that you're watching the sci-fi films and think, oh wow, that's really far out. I don't think people realize quite how close it is
yeah.
to being our reality.
I totally agree. The analogy I give is I think everyone talks about the wave of AI coming. It's like, no, 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 no. Yeah, you're standing on the beach and you look up, there's a 100-meter wave right above you right now. Yeah, it's here. I think for many people, like you said, they don't understand the ramification of. For many people, there could be a huge amount of disruption and retraining opportunity. A young man was asking me, in fact, he was in the garden. He was asking me, "Well, what do you think I should do? I've just graduated." And my answer was, "Focus on being the human." You know, because ultimately, we might have to relearn being humans first and foremost, being the human in the loop, and being augmented, albeit by AI, being complemented by AI. Not in a you've got nice trousers on, Will, that kind of thing, but in terms of, augmentation of our skills. You got me on a specialist subject here. Look, I love it. I'm not going to bore you to tears with it, I promise, but maybe over a beer one day. One piece of advice, Will, you give to your younger self.
One piece of advice I would give to my younger self. Do what you love. Just do what you love. Follow what you love. Yeah.
Thank you. Will, thanks for sharing your journey, your insights, the great stories. For those listening, check out Will's book, North Star Thinking. You got your podcast, Will, right? North Star Conversations. WillPolston.com. That's enough plugs, is it? Is that enough plug? Oh, good man, good man. Look, and if you found this conversation valuable, please subscribe to our AdvisorPro podcast. We've got more stories from coaches, authors, advisors, anyone, everyone trying to create impact through their work. So thank you, everyone. And that's us.